Hi, I'm Kelsey, and today I'm going to be making a patriotic ice cream cake. So first I'm starting out, I have butter in my mixer. It's been whipping until it's softened. Just make sure it's at room temperature. I'm adding some sugar, and I also have salt mixed in with the sugar. And what we're doing is we are basically making a red velvet cake. And we are going to be layering that with vanilla ice cream so you have a great red and white striped cake. So I'm going to turn my mixer on to medium speed and just whip that until it's nice and incorporated and creamy. Now I'm going to add, I have 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk. And I can add both of those at the same time and just mix on medium speed again until it's incorporated. And always make sure to scrape down your bowl at least once. All right, looks good. So now this is going to be your red velvet portion of the cake. We are going to add a little bit of vanilla and 2 bottles of red food coloring. I know it seems a little excessive, but if you want that rich red velvety color, you gotta do it. You can use either your liquid food coloring, or you can use a food gel. This right here, I have 1 bottle of food gel and 1 bottle of the liquid red food coloring. And it comes out to about 3 tablespoons in total if you have a bigger bottle. All right, so I'm just going to mix that up. Make sure you start on low speed because you don't want red food coloring all over your white chart. All right, so this is a bright red patriotic color, but most red velvet cakes have a little bit of cocoa powder. I'm adding 1 block of semi-sweet dark chocolate, and that's about 1 ounce. If you like the bright red color, you can omit this, but I think that it just adds a nice hue to your cake. Make sure to scrape down the bowl at least once with this because some of the chocolate will get stuck on the bottom. All right, so now we have buttermilk, which makes the cake very soft and moist, and we have some AP flour. I prefer to use cake flour. If you can't find cake flour, like I couldn't find it at the store, what you can do is you can mix AP flour with about 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and what that does is cake flour has less protein content than all-purpose flour. So you're taking away some of that protein and just kind of adding a filler, and that will be almost the same as using a cake flour. So I'm going to start with some of my dries and alternate it with the buttermilk, ending with my dry ingredients. And start it on a low speed. And just when you see it come together, you don't want to overmix it, that's when you know you can start adding your buttermilk. I'm just going to add the whole thing at once. Again, started on a low speed. And here I'm ending with my flour. All right, now that it's just together, this is the fun part. So, you know when you were in the 3rd grade and you had science experiments and you made a volcano and added baking soda and vinegar together and that was the explosion? So this is basically what you're doing. So I have a little bit of baking soda. This is going to act as the leavener. And I have my vinegar. That's your nice volcanic explosion here, and just add it right into the bowl. And just mix that until it is combined, and then we're done with the cake. All right, give it one last scrape down to get those goodies all incorporated. And I have a springform pan that is buttered, lined with parchment paper, and buttered again. This will ensure that the cake pops right out. This is a really kind of moist, it's not a gooey cake, but it's very moist. And so you want to make sure that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees. This is going to go in for about 30 to 40 minutes. And just stick a cake tester, make sure it comes out clean. I think mine went for about 34 in my oven, but of course every oven temperature will vary just slightly. So spread it out, and I'm going to stick this in the oven. All right, so our beautiful red velvet cake is out of the oven. As you can see, I let it cool, and then I took it out of the pan because you want to rewash your springform pan because you're using this again at this step. So now I have a knife, and I'm going to go all the way around and slice this baby in half. And what I have here is vanilla ice cream, and I let it sit out for about a half hour out of the freezer so that it is malleable enough to spread on your cake without completely tearing up the cake. So I'm putting this first piece on the bottom back into my springform pan. Look at that. All right, so half of this carton of ice cream is going on top of this. And obviously we're making a red and white layered effect to emulate the American flag. And just spread it out. Don't worry if it seems a little soft. We're going to stick it back in the freezer for a couple hours and let it re-solidify. Okay, that looks good. So now we are going to slide this last piece of cake. Say a prayer and slide it onto your ice cream cake. You know what? It fell apart a tiny, tiny bit, but it doesn't really matter because this is layered and no one's going to see this middle portion. All right. So now for the last layer of ice cream. So I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to spread this out. If it seems too hard, don't fiddle with it because you're going to tear up your cake. Just let it melt a little bit more. You kind of want to work a little bit fast because it is starting to melt and it will start to leak out of the bottom a tiny, tiny bit, and that's why we're lining the outside of the pan with foil. And here I have 1 pint of blueberries. Nice, fresh, local blueberries. I'm going to just spread them around evenly. And then what I'm going to do, because we're hiding these and we're going to top it with whipped cream, is I'm just going to take palm of my hand and press it into the ice cream. All right, so this is ready to pop back in the freezer. So again, line the bottom of the pan with foil and let this refreeze for about 1 to 2 hours. Just make sure it's really, really firm. Okay, so I took the ice cream cake out of the freezer. I let it sit for about 2 minutes while I'm whipping this cream just so it has a little bit of a chance to loosen up outside of the mold. So I'm going to put my heavy whipping cream in the mixer. And I'm going to start this on low, and once it starts to get a little bit of viscosity, then I'll kick it up a little bit until it gets to medium peaks. All right, now it's starting to thicken a little bit, so I'm going to add about a teaspoon of vanilla and powdered sugar to sweeten. And I'm just going to whip this until it gets to stiff peaks. All right, so here's the fun part, unmolding the ice cream cake. So first, you're going to want to just loosen your foil, and I'm going to run a knife along the outside. And if you have trouble doing this, if it's still too hard, just dip your knife in a little hot water, and that will help loosen it up, and hopefully it will pop right out. All right, that's good. Cross your fingers. And voila. Okay. So now I'm going to transfer this onto this plate so that we can frost, and then later we'll put it on a platter so that it's not all messy with the whipped cream. Perfect. All right. So now I'm just going to mound the whipped cream on the top. And if you have an offset spatula, that works really well too. And a cake stand so that it spins is awesome for doing this. And really, if you want to get super decorative, you can put this in a piping bag and pipe it. All right, and now you're just gonna pop this back in the freezer to let it solidify for about 15 minutes to a half hour, but the longer the better. So here's our cake. It's been about a half hour. The whipped cream freezes super, super fast. And what I like to do is, if it wasn't totally smooth when you put it in the freezer, it really smooths out now once it's a tiny bit frozen. And I transferred it onto a nice pedestal, and I'm gonna top it with more blueberries. You can use raspberries at this point. I just like to mound this in the middle so everybody gets a lot of berries. It may look excessive, but I think it's decorative. All right, now either serve it immediately or pop it back in the freezer until you're ready to serve, and enjoy your patriotic ice cream cake.